Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another online battle today. In this one, I take the Vampire Counts into battle against Bretonnia, led by Dinsorie HDLPTV. The one and only Heinrich Kemmler leads my forces with Master of the Dead, the Curse of Undeath, Chaos Tombblade, Invocation of Nehek, Raise Dead, Wind of Death, Arcane Conduit, Undeath Resurgent, and Cloak of Mists and Shadows. His Necromancer comes in on a corpse cart with an unholy lodestone, bringing Vigor Mortis, Master of the Dead, the Curse of Undeath, Raise Dead, a Scroll of Shielding, and a Scroll of Power. The army consists of 4 units of Skeleton Warriors ranked up to rank 2, and 4 units of Skeleton Spearmen ranked up as well. 2 units of Graveguard and 2 units of Cairn Wraiths will have a great time against enemy infantry, while the Blood Knights will provide support against enemy large units, though I'm more concerned about enemy range support. Finally, the Claw of Nagash comes in for some serious anti-infantry support. With this build, I wanted to take a very large army that was maybe a little unwieldy and had a tremendous amount of resilience, and I wanted to have some fun with Heinrich on the field and a corpse cart. Haven't done it before, thought it'd be interesting. That's what I get for playing a battle at 4 o'clock in the morning, I guess. Now, Bretonnia is led by the Fey Enchantress, atop her unicorn with Life Bloom, Mist of the Lady, Earthblood, Arcane Conduit, and Favor of the Fey. 2 paladins join her, albeit in the air, and a unit of men-at-arms with shields ranked up to rank 5 join 3 units of battle pilgrims and 3 units of foot squires to create the main force, while 2 units of men-at-arms with polearms will provide great anti-large armor-piercing support. The peasant bowmen with fire arrows are always a great call against the vampire counts who might bring regeneration, and 2 units of Royal Pegasus Knights are an expensive but excellent pick if you suspect cavalry or ethereal units. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about deployment, and while Bretonnia keeps it relatively simple, I do try a couple of different things as I've been doing with this army from the get-go. So let's start with the vampire counts here, with my vampire counts. In the little forest over here, we do have a front line of alternating Graveguard and Cairn Wraiths, you can see here, and that's just to mingle the anti-infantry and the armor-piercing support side by side, get some magical damage in there as well as some shields and physical resistance as well, of course. Then, right behind that, in the center, we do have the Claw of Nagash, providing that regenerative support and also damage to the enemy. While on the left flank, I have Heinrich Kemmler over here, and on the right flank, I do have the Necromancer on his corpse cart over here, again, providing some support in regeneration within that radius, so I'm trying to get the entire front line some form of support or the other. Meanwhile, all the way at the back, we do have 2 units of Skeleton Spearmen, 1 on either flank. These guys able to push out and intercept any large units that I might have to deal with, or of course get involved with the front lines as well, just to provide some extra support. Now, if we zoom all the way out, you can see I do have something planned on either flank as well. Here I have a collection of 2 units of Skeleton Warriors and a unit of Skeleton Spearmen, and the same thing over here as well, tucked away in these small forests, these small collections of trees, just so that I can push them up along the side, because again, there's a very steep fall off here, so I figure I could stay hidden and then come in with some rear and flanking maneuvers, while I do have the Blood Knights here as well, hoping to tuck them from this set of trees to this set over here, and again, push them up and come in with some flanking maneuvers. So, a very, very wide deployment, a very large army compared to what I'm used to bringing for the Vampire Count. Just thought I'd have some fun. Now, let's take a look at Bretonnia. Again, relatively simple on this side of the field. The front line consists of 3 units of Battle Pilgrims, and on either flank we do have the men-at-arms with polearms. Again, if anything large is coming in from the sides, these guys are able to intercept, or of course if I've got Crypt Horrors or anything like that coming in, these guys are able to push into the front lines and provide support there as well. Right behind them, we do have the Fey Enchantress atop her unicorn in the middle there, with the Foot Squires right behind her, all 3 units, again, able to push forward after initial engagements begin, or come in with flanking maneuvers and rear charges of their own, just to provide some serious support to the front line. Right behind them, we do have the Peasant Bowmen with their fire arrows, able to provide that range support, and again, the fire is really good against units that have regeneration, while the men-at-arms with shields are all the way back here, in fact, supporting these Peasant Bowmen. In case I decide to raise some dead back here, some zombies get in here, these men-at-arms with shields will do a decent amount of damage to those zombies and take care of them pretty quickly, and more importantly, lock them in place while the Peasant Bowmen set themselves free. And then finally, up in the air, we do have, well, the entire Air Force, both units of Royal Pegasus Knights, as well as both Paladins as well, and these guys are going to be pretty threatening for me, let me tell you. So, with all that said and done, let's take a look at how this all breaks down. So it's a little slow to start as he pushes forward and I push forward ever so slightly as well in just a moment's time. So we're going to kick it up a notch in terms of speed, just to avoid this slow crawl that he has towards me and the slow crawl that I respond with as well. But very shortly you'll see I make my first mistake, and this is a relatively major mistake. You'll see I pull the Blood Knights out here, and I'm trying to shift them into the trees over here, thinking that I have the perfect opportunity because of that ridge that these guys will be hidden. But unfortunately, as you saw, there was just that little pocket there where they were completely visible. So as I tried to push them up and get a nice advanced movement going on over there, my opponent did notice, and Bretonnia is sending both of these Royal Pegasus Knights as well as both Paladins over to deal with the situation. And I noticed that right away as well, so rather than trying to tuck away into the trees where it's relatively predictable where these horses went, I decide to try and bait him either into this engagement over here and fully surround him with some of these skeletons, or hope to scare him off. At the same time, you'll see I've got these skeleton spearmen as well pushing off to this side because all the cavalry is bulking onto this side over here, and I'm hoping to actually get the Blood Knights all the way up to here and then sandwich with the skeleton spearmen. At this point, though, I realize that that's going to be impossible because the Air Force is literally right upon me, but at this point as well, he sees my skeleton army. So you'll see he touches down. Actually, he doesn't even touch down. Turns around right away. Does not want to risk that engagement. Good call by him. This would be a relatively dangerous situation, especially if I have a Necromancer nearby to raise some undead and get those guys stuck in place. But now that he's sort of committed to that side, I do push forward with all of my forces, and as he peels back on that left flank there, I send these guys up front as well. And now the cairn rates are extremely fast, so I actually try to slow them down a little bit. You'll see I do a little bit of arrow dodging there as well. Not really worried about the fire arrows on my cairn rates either way, but just trying to get these guys lined up as I push forward, and also just trying to maintain pace with this flanking maneuver as well. I want these guys to come in at roughly the same time if possible, though ultimately, as we all know, I'm a little impatient, and you can see the result of that. I'm just pushing forward right now. I don't want to just stand within range of the fire arrows, of course, and at the same time, on the other flank as well, I've got these guys moving forward, and they are very slow, of course. They're skeleton warriors and skeleton spearmen, so they're not going to get there very quickly, but I do want to get these engagements started just so I can get them on my terms, and you'll see the cairn rates here dive in relatively quickly, and they will get a decent amount of damage done. So diving into the Battle Pilgrims here as well, diving into the Battle Pilgrims, but the men-at-arms with polearms pushing in as well, while the Claw of Nagash is following up. The Fey Enchantress does decide to get involved, while these peasant bowmen with fire arrows are firing away at some of my Graveguard. Don't really care, they have their shields, they'll be just fine, and you'll see now we have a full frontline engagement as these guys dive in. So we hit the Battle Pilgrims on both sides here with our Graveguard, and locking the front line into place while the Fey Enchantress is diving into the Claw of Nagash, while a lot of range fire is also coming in. So a very dangerous situation for the Claw of Nagash, a lot of fire damage coming in, so not the ideal engagement there. Meanwhile, you'll see the Royal Pegasus Knights and the Paladins are sort of flying around here, trying to find the ideal engagement, while Kemmler over here has pushed forward and decides to pull the trigger on the first Wind of Death, or rather the only Wind of Death we're going to see in this battle. So this is a risky Wind of Death. I'm fully aware of that, but I want to take care of this engagement as quickly as possible. These foot squires have just arrived. The Battle Pilgrims are about half health, and if I can get rid of these guys, then it'll definitely help my Graveguard, who are at a decent position right now. Now, I do notice that the Wind of Death is going to hurt some of my own troops as well, but I don't really mind so much because I do have my Necromancer right there. He's very capable of regenerating these guys' health. And take a look at the amount of damage done here. A significant amount of hurt delivered by the Wind of Death, as can be expected. And as a result of that, in that little right central flank area, I almost instantaneously win as these guys both get absolutely terrified and they decide to fall back, and the Necromancer, again, providing that regenerative support to the Graveguard, so not a problem at all for myself. Meanwhile, all the way over here, you'll see the Royal Pegasus Knights as well as the Paladins are pushing in towards my cavalry over here, diving into the Blood Knights, and that's a very precarious situation while I do send my Skeleton Spearmen up here to try and engage the men-at-arms with polearms, because I'm trying to get my Blood Knights to push around this way. So I commit to that bit. I try to send these guys in to engage that line of polearms so that I can get the Blood Knights around. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see I do have my cairn raids hit by the Scroll of Shielding. Earlier they were hit by the Invocation of Nehek as well, trying very hard to keep these guys alive. I do not want them to fall apart and die. They can do a lot of damage over the course of this battle, so trying very hard to keep them alive. Wrong word to use, I guess. Meanwhile, the Fey Enchantress continues to give chase to the Claw of Nagash, actually using Earthblood to stay alive, using Earthblood, of course, to keep the Battle Pilgrims here alive as well, and just causing a tremendous amount of hurt into the Claw of Nagash, while this unit of zombies was raised by Kemmler to try and push these peasant bowmen back, keep them occupied, and make sure they're not able to get shots off. So that's working out so far, especially because the men-at-arms here are very slow to respond into that situation. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Necromancer does continue to give chase for a little while, just to make sure that these foot squires continue to rout and stay within range of the Graveguard, though, just to make sure that, again, the Graveguard do get some of that regenerative support. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Cairn Wraiths are getting some support from these Skeleton Spearmen. I just want to get rid of this right flank as quickly as possible. Not the ideal engagement over here. I should have actually sent these guys around, but very quickly, these men-at-arms with their polearms are going to give up and run from the field. While over here, you'll see the Blood Knights a little bit stuck in, so not really able to pull that off perfectly. I do have to send my Skeleton Spearmen up. As you see, I do that just shortly as they duke it out with the men-at-arms with polearms here. I decide that to make sure I can free the Blood Knights out properly, I do have to send my Skeleton Spearmen in as well. So you can see I do that, and these halberds are actually pulled alongside, these polearms rather, are pulled alongside that disengagement. So that works out wonderfully for me, while Invocation of the Heck is trying to keep these Blood Knights alive. You'll see the Royal Pegasus Knights decide not to pursue, not to engage, and I'm actually free back there, while this unit of zombies is brought up here to try and get a rear charge and a surround on these foot squires, get these guys scared off the field. Meanwhile, all the way over here, you'll see we've got both of these paladins taking care of my skeleton warriors and skeleton spearmen. I don't really stand a chance there, but I'm very happy to bog down all of these units as these Royal Pegasus Knights dive in as well. I'm glad that that's happening. Meanwhile, you'll notice here on the right, I finally have that right flanking maneuver arrive. They're a little slow. It's a little unfortunate, especially because I'm so impatient, but they finally do arrive as a reserve force into the main engagement. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Blood Knights do get sent in for a side charge into these men-at-arms with polearms, trying to get some damage in there. Decent amount does get done. These skeleton spearmen need to be kept alive. Every unit is extremely important in this situation. And over here, you'll see the zombies hit by Invocation of Neck. A bit of a bad call there, completely unnecessary, I have to admit, but yeah, they're getting a little bit of life kicked into them. While over here, you'll see the Blood Knights get a nice rear charge into this left flank over here. Earthblood be damned, to get a nice charge in there. Terror kicks in. These guys are going to fall apart as Heinrich dives in as well. Meanwhile, I finally notice the situation the Claw of Nagash is in, and I decide to pull back as the rest of this army does push in to the Fey Enchantress, trying to shut her down and get her off the field once and for all. Meanwhile, you'll see this left flank has been completely lost. Again, I don't mind entirely because I was able to keep these guys occupied for so long, got a little bit of damage in, so at the end of the day, it's all right. Meanwhile, you'll see the Claw of Nagash here, as you can see, chasing down some of these guys here, these men-at-arms with shields, trying to finish those guys off, but I am putting that Claw of Nagash in a very risky situation. As a result, you'll see the Paladins here and the Royal Pegasus Knights decide to dive in and immediately take care of the Claw of Nagash. They do not care. It had very little health left, it's completely destroyed, and it did very little work, so it's a little unfortunate that that had to happen. While up here, you'll see I was sending these zombies to give chase and ultimately decide not to do so, while all the way back here, you'll see all of these Pegasus Knights as well as the Paladins dive into Heinrich Kemmler to take care of him, but I pop open some zombies here to try and bog these guys down, but unfortunately, they're able to just kick right through and take right back into the air, while these Spearmen and Skeleton Warriors still try to, well, close the gap unnecessarily now. Meanwhile, I do notice that the enemy is starting to reform a little bit, and I do have to respond to that. My intent now is to actually wipe all of the ground units off the field because I'm very worried about my ability to deal with the Royal Pegasus Knights and the Paladins. It's a very dangerous situation for me, so I do decide to focus a little bit on the infantry that Bretonnia has brought to the field. Meanwhile, you'll see my Blood Knights over here do get shut down by the Royal Pegasus Knights. A very hard hit there, but I am ready with some Spearmen right here. I do have the Cairn Wraiths as well, but now I'm sending them forward to actually chase after some of these foot squires and make sure that they can't, again, stay on the field. I want them off the field so that the leadership starts to fall for Bretonnia. Meanwhile, over here, I try to get the Paladin stuck in. He is affected by the favor of the face, so he's getting a lot of support there, but I get these zombies in there to try and get him stuck in so these Blood Knights can take care of him, bring these Skeleton Spearmen in as well, and sending these Skeleton Spearmen down while this unit of Skeleton Spearmen waiting for their opportunity to push in. I don't want to clump in all together, because if I actually send all of my units into this clump, when these Royal Pegasus Knights come flying in, as they're doing right now, they'll just toss everything aside, and I cannot risk that. You'll see right now, even as they come in for that charge, throwing a lot of these units aside and freeing the Paladin right up, so that's why I don't want to clump everything in together. Meanwhile, over here, the Fey Enchantress almost risking a charge into these Spearmen there, but I think deciding not to, ultimately trying to get some support in. Pops Earthblood while my Spearmen come in from the side down here. The Cairn Wraiths, meanwhile, terrifying these guys off again, trying to just wipe these guys off the field as these Skeleton Warriors as well push down into the woods to scare these guys off. Now, over here, you'll see I try to get the Skeleton Spearmen to actually get a full surround in, while this unit of Skeleton Spearmen once again being sent in. I need to try and get these guys bogged down. They're on the ground right now. I have a new unit of zombies popping up in there as well, very quickly being taken care of, but I need these guys stuck in on the ground so that these Skeleton Spearmen can get a lot of work done. Now, the Corpse Cart as well needs to be pulled in a little bit closer. Unfortunately, I don't do that in this engagement, and as a result of that, the Blood Knights do fall, and the Pegasus Knights as well as the Paladins decide to disengage. So great work there, diving in, getting that damage done, getting rid of a very high tier unit, and then pulling away, and then diving right back in again, getting a lot of that charge damage in there. A lot of work done, wonderfully done as well. Heinrich Kemmler does get hit. I do pop Cloak of Mist and Shadows just to get that extra physical resistance, keep them alive for a little bit longer, and also pop Undeath Resurgence just to keep these guys alive and willing to fight, keep their melee defense up and keep their leadership up as well so they do not crumble. Meanwhile, all the way over here, you'll see I do send these zombies up to deal with some of these Battle Pilgrims over here, while the Graveguard over here as well, going in for the same purpose. Unfortunately, though, hit by the Peasant Bowmen with their fire arrows, taking a lot of damage, while this unit of Skeleton Warriors again being sent up there as well, just as cleanup duty. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see as the Corpse Cart finally comes close, providing that Vigor Mortis support, providing the Unholy Lodestone support, these guys are managing to stay alive and cause a decent amount of damage as well. These Royal Pegasus Knights are finally eating a lot of hurt. You'll see Heinrich is in a bit of a tough spot as well, though the Paladins are doing a lot of damage to him, but I'm getting a decent surround going on here. I pull out these zombies just to try and get Heinrich out of there, but really I'm concerned about these Skeleton Spearmen. I really want them to push in, continue this surround, and try and eliminate at least one unit of Royal Pegasus Knights. This feels like the only chance I have, and I really need to take it. And at the same time, you'll see all the way over here as a sort of battlefield overview, I've got these Cairn Wraiths as well as these Skeleton Warriors shutting down this unit of Foot Squires. These guys are terrified off the field. They're routing right now. I do need to shut these guys down as well, so eventually I do decide to split the group here up to try and force these Foot Squires off the field. Meanwhile, all the way over here, you'll see I do have my Graveguard and Skeleton Spearmen chasing these Men-at-Arms with polearms, as well as the Men-at-Arms with shields off, while all the way over here, this unit of Graveguard is continuing to, well, be dealt with by the Foot Squires over here. This unit of Skeleton Warriors, meanwhile, being sent in to deal with these Battle Pilgrims and eventually shut down the Peasant Bowmen, who are currently obstructed. So I need to push in and try and get rid of these guys ASAP. Again, just trying to get the ground forces taken care of, but my opponent does something very clever. The Fey Enchantress is tucked away in the trees here, and I completely miss that she's still alive, and as a result of that, I completely think that enemy leadership has been taken care of, and I don't even think to look for her. So very cleverly done, hiding her after a rout, making sure that I don't spot her, and not really using her magic unless absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, over here in the center, you'll see I do lose a unit of Skeleton Warriors as well. Necromancer trying his best to keep these guys alive, but there's only so much that can be done. You can see Heinrich here is taking a beating. He's being hit from all sides, but I am getting a decent amount of work done to these Royal Pegasus Knights, the Paladins as well, in a bit of a precarious situation. So overall, this is working out for me. I do try to make sure the Necromancer stays close. I want to make sure that Vigor Mortis stays active for all of these units, including Heinrich, and you can see I am doing that, just making sure that these guys all stay alive. Meanwhile, the Royal Pegasus Knights here decide to return to the fray. They're pushing in while I do send the Skeleton Spearmen down here as well. I realize that the cavalry are going to stick here, and so I do need to respond to that from all directions as Heinrich there gets tossed aside in a very precarious situation. Popping Arcane Conduit, I want to get at least one more cast off from Heinrich, and I do also get Undeath Resurgent active one more time. I just want to make sure that if he is going to die, he dies like a goddamn hero. Meanwhile, all the way back here, you'll notice I do split my forces up. These Cairn Wraiths were sent down here to shut these Foot Squires down and get them to completely shatter, while over here I do have these Skeleton Warriors coming back up to try and provide some support in this central engagement. Meanwhile, the the Graveguard over here are continuing to chase after the Foot Squires. As I mentioned, these Skeleton Spearmen here are pushing down to join this main engagement, while over here the Skeleton Warriors have taken care of the Battle Pilgrims and are now pushing towards the Peasant Bowmen. Meanwhile, back here to the story of Heinrich Kemmler, badass of the battlefield. You can see he's completely surrounded, taking a huge beating, pops Undeath Resurgent again, dying like a hero if he's going to die, eating a lot of hurt, and even with the Necromancer right there, not able to get enough help in, but these Skeleton Spearmen there are pushing in, and they definitely want to provide some support. I need to get that full surround going in, and you'll see it does get in, but unfortunately it's just a little too late. Heinrich Kemmler does die, and look at leadership drop instantaneously. I am extremely concerned at this point that that is the end of the battle. I push these Skeleton Warriors in as well. I get the Necromancer in as close as possible. I want his encouragement there to keep leadership up, and I need his regenerative support right now more than ever before. Meanwhile, all the way up here, you'll see the Peasant Bowmen have been shut down, while my Graveguard here decided to dive into the Foot Squires and shut them down relatively easily, and I can actually get a nice rear charge from these Skeleton Warriors as well, and I do just that. So you'll see off in the distance there, as that rear charge is happening, the Pegasus Knights here, as well as the Paladins, are just looking for a point of entry, looking for a chance to charge, while I get a rear charge there onto the Foot Squires, as you can see off in the distance. And you'll see these guys find their opportunity. They aim for the Necromancer, dive in, get a lot of hurt in instantaneously. Morale drops significantly, but I send my Skeleton Spearmen right away to respond. Meanwhile, all the way in the trees over here, you'll notice the Cairn Wraith actually being sent up to chase after this unit of Men-at-Arms with shields. It's to spot the Fey Enchantress, and that was a big mistake my opponent made. If he'd put these Men-at-Arms with shield anywhere else, I probably would not have seen the Fey Enchantress, and she would have been alive, and rather she would have been left alone and would have been able to provide support for a lot longer. But these Kenrays now are giving chase, and after this unit of foot squires does shatter, I'm able to actually sandwich the Fey Enchantress as she decides to retreat. Meanwhile, over here you'll see the Necromancer very close to dying there, very close to giving up as well, decides to pull away, is able to pull away while these Skeleton Spearmen here, again, pushing off to the side, trying to get a decent surround. You'll see the Royal Pegasus Knights are taking a lot of hurt. They've eaten a lot of damage, and this is working out very well for me. Again, trying to keep the Necromancer close still. I don't want him to push too far away. I need all the support in this area as I can get, and the Fey Enchantress has decided to ride away up here, but of course I do have my Skeleton Warriors and Graveguard. They're able to shut her down if she decides to stay up there as well, and at this point I notice that morale is extremely low over here, and this might be my chance to get both of these Paladins off the field in one swoop. So I get these Cairn Wraiths, rather than chasing after the Fey Enchantress, I get them down here. They have terror. I have a full surround going on. I've got decent damage happening, so I can actually survive this situation and come out on top. You'll see Earthblood goes down here. Great call there, trying to support these guys and keep them alive, but the Cairn Wraiths are extremely close, and they're charging in. The Skeleton Spearmen are very close to giving up. Necromancer trying his best to keep these guys alive and fighting. Royal Pegasus Knight here deciding to dive in to try and get engaged, but these Cairn Wraiths are here, buddy, and they're going to cause a lot of terror. You can see terror kicks in almost right away, scaring these Paladins, terrifying them right off the field, and as a result of that, you can see across the field, we're going to have a full shatter as Bretonnia decides that maybe fighting the Vampire Counts is not the best idea, and a Pyrrhic victory for my Vampire Counts. Now, I made quite a few mistakes at the start of the battle, and through the battle, let's be honest, and the Mortis Engine was very poorly managed, I have to say. Had I kept that thing alive, I would have done much better in this battle. Nonetheless, I wanted to go with something a little bit more unwieldy on the field, and though it took time to get there, we eventually had skeletons and zombies all across the field, mopping up the enemy, while a core army dealt with the Royal Pegasus Knights and the Paladins, assisted by a great deal of regeneration. I really wanted to experiment with the Corpse Cart and Heinrich Kemmler just to see if they can be useful on the field, how they can be useful, and how they can be used, and the Corpse Cart really shows its value here, and if I'd taken a more formidable lord to the field, the battle may have ended a lot quicker. But with that said, I actually enjoyed Heinrich on the field. He had a good time. As always, guys, for more Total War content, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Total Breakdown and my own online battles continue on. And once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.